And we're live. Hello. No countdown. How are you, Ryan?
All good. How are you? It feels weird having no countdown.
I know, it was really freaking me out. But I mentioned quickly beforehand that I wasn't going to do it. But the reason I don't want to do it anymore is because I've just found myself thinking about it yesterday, and I just thought, why do I do the countdown? And the only reason I could think that was, apart from it, it just kind of signifies the start. So if you're watching, it's like, oh, cool, it's about to start. That's not really a benefit. The only reason I did it is because everybody else does it.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's so stupid. And anytime I watch a live stream and there's a countdown, I'm like double tapping, going, oh, come on, get on with it. So I was like, just stop it. So I'm not.
Well, I don't think it'll make a difference to anyone else. I don't think they'll care.
No one will care. But it did freak me out. And I was like,
I bet you in the comment section there'll be people going, hey, where's the countdown this week?
People don't like change, so
especially me. And that is what this live stream is about, isn't it? It's about change.
Excellent segue. Nice.
Yes, see,
it is indeed. So this is about. There's a couple of things I want to talk about first, but this is about how the hobby has changed. Actually, I messed up the thumbnail. It was 2007 when you got into the hobby, not 2005. 15 years ago, not 17.
Correct, 15.
But either way, that's a long old time. Now, I've not been in the hobby anything like as long as you. I joined the hobby in August 2014, and I know it was August 2014, and I'm being weirdly specific about that because I went looking for my first tank earlier today, and I found it. Hang on, why isn't that? There we go.
You can tell it's 2014 because you've got LEDs.
Well, yeah, exactly. So this is not that old, but this was and just quickly, the Reefing Chuckle Brothers. But so this was my first tank. So, and there was an MP10. Ooh, fancy. But anyway, so we'll come back onto that in a sec. But so that's I've been in the hobby 8 years. You've been in the hobby 15 years. So the stuff that for me that wasn't around 8 years ago, not mega changes, still some changes, but from winding back only a further 9 years, 7 years, makes a big difference. However, there are a couple of things I want to talk about before we get started on that. And there are a couple of 3D printed things I've discovered. So first off, you haven't got a Tunzi auto top off, have you?
Yeah, I have a Tunzi one, yeah.
Oh, right. So you know that the pump is supposed to stand up.
I don't know if it's just me, but your microphone sounds funny.
It does. Everyone else, no one's mentioned it.
It's like it's almost on like fast speed.
Oh, it's probably just catching up. So it'll be all right.
It's only just started happening, so that's why maybe no one's mentioned. But anyway,
it will probably go away. But anyway, so you know that with the Tunzi auto top off.
Yes,
it's crackling.
See, it does say echo. People can hear it. See.
Echo. Reef mic. Oh, for heaven!
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Right, hang on a second. Automatically adjust mic. Let's try turning that back on. Okay,
it sounds like ASMR. Firstly, that is literally the worst ASMR I've ever heard. If that's what you think it sounds like.
Okay, so does that sound better to you, Ryan?
It's fixed now. Yes.
Okay, so I'm still getting like this. There's a 30-second delay. Better now. Wicked. So everybody else, is that better? Is this now fixed? I don't sound like Mr. Roboto anymore. Kessel make mics now. Anyway, I tried this. The thing is that it's this section of the setting on the software that overrides your control on the mic, and I hate it. So I tried turning it off. I've just turned it back on, and it seems to have fixed it. So
yeah, don't touch it again.
Tunzi auto top off. No, I'm not. I shall not do so. Right, this is it basically. I found this little 3D printed stand. I think you might have seen it on Instagram.
I did,
it's bloody amazing because I can never get it to stand up. And I've ordered another one, and now suddenly it stands up, and it's wicked.
Yeah, I don't use them anymore, but I can see why that would be considered good. That should have been in our last live stream.
I know, £9 off eBay as well. That was, and the second thing, 3D printed. I love 3D printed stuff. This is an MP40 cage. I mentioned this last week. So this creates an angle. Okay, so it doesn't just flow straight out. And I've tried it. I've got 3 of these. If that's your normal level of flow, it just blows straight. This blows about that angle. And you can twist it anyway, so it points in any direction.
Are you happy with it though? That's what I need to know. So far, you're just selling it to me.
I'm happy with it for the most part. The only bad thing is on the Facebook page of Aquaprint is the company. On their Facebook page, the reason I bought it, or one of the reasons I bought it, was because they had it and it said it had 2 centimeters from the top of the water line, and they said it's 2 centimeters from the water line and it's not pulling in those little currents, those little eddies. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. So I set this up an inch below the water line. And that's bollocks. maybe my power head is different. Maybe theirs was at a lower percentage.
I like how you're advertising it and then going, it doesn't work to how they said.
Well, the second, it was a bit disappointing because there's just, I don't know, maybe I've got a duff one or whatever, but I think the likelihood is it's got to be a couple of inches below the waterline.
Does it replace the existing grill or go over the existing grill?
You take the cage at the grill off and put this one on.
Oh, that's actually cool. Because I've seen them before where they go over it, but then it makes them look massive. Yeah. Whereas I quite like that then.
There are like the normal one's got like spaces. This has got loads of little squares. So I bet things like snails will get stuck to it. So algae. So you might have to clean it more, which I know you love doing.
I think again, I think you're really blurry now for me.
Oh yeah.
I think is
hang on.
Is Laura...
let me check. Yeah, let me check with Mrs. Reef Dork. See if she's on.
Are you on Netflix?
You keep talking, Phil. Are you on Netflix?
What kind of...
Get off the internet.
As you can see, this is Reef Dork in his natural habitat, talking to his wife or Mrs.
I tell you what. I was trying to be clever, and it hasn't worked. But anyway, we'll move on because we'll move on. We'll move on. And I think actually now, so I can see when the internet goes bad, it's back.
Yes, it's back.
Right. Yeah. 7 minutes of bullshit. And now we can get back on with it.
Well, you do your members' questions because that's what you normally do first.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Good point. Well, remember.
Some one of us cares about your members.
No, yeah. Right. Member questions. So there was actually, I care so much. I pulled it up as a banner. Look at that.
Wow.
And anyway, so this was James. Remember James? So he's not on topic, but there might be rolling power cuts over the winter. What are your plans? I'm not convinced there are going to be rolling blackouts, power cuts, to be honest. But it's probably a good idea to assume that there will be.
I'm getting nervous, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Have you got a generator yet? Because you didn't.
I don't have a generator. I have got backups, but not a generator. And obviously the backups will last for a period of time, and the room will stay warm and everything. And they do say that if there were blackouts, they would let us know beforehand. But as soon as that happens, all of a sudden you just everyone runs out and buys a generator. So then all the generators are sold out. So it's one of those things. It's like insurance or anything, basically. They cost quite a lot of money to run the farm. We need a big one, and then you just think, will I ever use it? But then I'll always have it. So I should get it.
The thing is, if you don't get one, and the power goes out, how much money do you lose? A lot more than the cost of a generator.
At least £12. Yes, true. So
exactly. So the answer to the question is battery backup. If you've got Vortex, get an Ecotech battery backup, and that will last. That will probably mean that you have no problems whatsoever. Because in the UK, we never have long power cuts. And all right, touch wood, I might be jinxing it, but it's unlikely they last for hours. Those things, so you're unlikely to have a wipeout, and that should be enough. However, you should also get a generator. Because then if you're at home or when you get home, you can turn the generator on, put the heater on, put other things on, all that sort of stuff. So you should have a generator and a battery backup. If you can't afford both, just get a battery backup because that will turn on automatically when you're away and it will keep water moving. And that's the main thing is keep water moving so it oxygenates the tank. Yeah. Otherwise,
you should get one anyway. Even if you don't have, even if we don't have blackouts. One of my biggest crashes ever took 4 hours, and if I had a battery backup, I lost £2,000 basically in 4 hours because of a power cut in the middle of the night. So I woke up and everything was dead, and the only reason that it was 4 hours was because the timer on the cooker was 4 hours out. So it obviously got off and come back on. But we live and learn, and ever since then, I've told everyone to get a battery backup. But now I'm not listening to my own advice about a generator, am I?
Well, there you go. But a generator for like hobby level, you can spend 200 quid on a petrol generator, and that will do fine.
Yeah.
For you, I'd guess you need
A big one.
big. Yeah, exactly.
I'd want one that does the whole house. So I can look smug to my neighbours. If I'm going to get one, I might as well get a proper one.
Absolutely, you have the TV on and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and so this is a 1 kilowatt Draper generator. That sounds big. I don't know. Don't speak kilowatt, but that sounds like a lot. So.
I don't. Is it a lot? That doesn't sound like a lot to me. If you think about how much heaters are, they're 500 watts.
No, actually, it's tiny. You're quite right. So let me share my screen.
We've now realized your weakness is electrics.
What's that? Kilowatts. Yeah. Oh, I'm useless at that. So this is a fancy Honda one. They're expensive. Mine is roughly this size, to be fair.
Oh, you've got one, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll pop down to your house then. All good.
Well, you will. I'll sell it to you. I'll work out how much you've got to lose in corals.
Yeah,
and then
it'll be
charge you half that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one I've got. It's from Screwfix. Oh, hang on, it's just disappeared. 200 quid.
There's such a
700 watts. So
is insane.
What's that?
The price difference is insane.
Well, this is 700 watts, so 70% of the 1 kilowatt one.
Yeah.
But the other one's a Honda, so it'll run for the next million years. Whereas this is made by Impacts, who presumably are rubbish, but it works. And I don't need it to run every day. And that's like the Honda one, I'm guessing, is a heavy duty one. But this is just a cheapo one, and I just need it to run for 6 hours every 2 years. So
yeah.
But anyway, so there you go. That's the answer, James.
There you go. Out of interest, you put a picture of your tank up. Have you got the pictures of my tank that I sent you? My original tanks.
Ooh. Yes, have I?
It doesn't matter. It's interesting to show people where I started, because
I've got a load of other photos you sent me. Should I bring those up?
That's what I thought earlier. I literally thought now that you've said that, and now that I laughed, it sounds like they're inappropriate pictures. But the reality was, Alex asked me to send him some pictures for his wall shrine of me, and so I sent him loads. No, he asked me to send him some pictures for the thumbnail. So as you can see in the thumbnail, you can see me on the left. Although one of my co-workers, I showed her that picture, she did not know who the person on the left was. And that's what I work with every day. And then on the obviously I'm older on the right, but I sent him a load of other pictures as well, and I'm almost certain, I was thinking this before the stream, I bet you bring them up, because that's exactly what I would do if it was you.
What? I should have done that, but I haven't.
I didn't even know you were going to use those pictures for the thumbnail, if I'm honest. But
oh no, I thought I said anyway.
Shall I start while you're doing it?
I have them.
Oh, you have them, do you?
So this is what tank is this? You've got this is your double flame angel.
That's my second tank. So the other one, which you've got a picture of.
What year was this then? Oh, hang on.
Oh, it's hard to say, if I'm honest, because if you go that go back. No, go back one. It's a tiny picture. That was my first. No, that wasn't my first tank. No, you've got a picture where it's like hardly any corals.
The only other, so this one?
That's one. That was my first tank. Look how terrible it is, and you can see even by the quality of the picture how terrible.
When I clicked on this, I thought it hadn't loaded properly because it's so small, but that's just what it is.
it must have been compressed, because I took the pictures off Facebook to send them to you. But yes, that was my very first tank. That it's probably been running for about a year at that point, if I'm honest. And you can see I didn't get very far in a year.
No, you got like 6 corals in there, all softies.
Yeah, I think that you see that line in the background. You can see in the top left.
Cable, yeah.
I don't think it's a cable. I think that's an airline tube. I used to have a bubble maker in the tank.
You had bubbles in there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And the clownfish used to host it. And that purple tang there is the one that I've had for 15 years. So,
but you still got him.
Yeah, I've still got it. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's in the coral farm, and when I eventually get a tank in the house, it will move to that tank because she's like my pride and joy. So but yeah, you can see, and then that was the tank after that first one.
This looks a bit more filled out.
Yeah, it had a few more corals in it then. That toadstool in the middle, that was the biggest toadstool I'd ever seen. And I have no idea where it came from. I don't even remember. But at this point, I was actually buying other people's tanks and then just taking the corals from there and then putting the corals in my tank and then selling the stuff I didn't need. So that was that tank. And then, yeah, you can see, I think I've got the flame angels there at that point.
Yeah, on the left.
Yes, yeah. And then after that, that's another picture from that same tank.
This is the start. Yeah, those are the only ones I've got from you. So apart from you wearing a Spider-Man costume and a gift.
Yeah, true. But I know you got one more on the very left. Because this
is the first one.
No. What that one? Next, that one.
Oh yeah,
that tank. That was what the 1,000 liter tank that you saw on my channel looked like before I turned it into a SPS tank.
Got so a little puffer, little stars and stripes puffer, whatever they're called.
Yeah, but that was the tank that crashed. So I lost all the fish basically in 4 hours.
Apart and a load of the corals. Tank?
No, yeah, the purple tank survived. You can see she's in the bottom right corner.
Double-hard bastard.
Yeah, can't be it. Anyway, this isn't about my tanks, is it? This is about how the hobby has changed. But I just thought
it's a good way to illustrate it, and actually, and just for the sake of completeness, I'll just show you. My tank I showed you on day one. This is it 18 months later, basically a month before I broke it down. There's a copper band in the corner that was about to die, sadly.
Yeah.
And there's just a load of algae everywhere, and just like a random mishmash of soft corals, LPS, SPS, textbook first tank.
No, it's way better than my first tank.
Look at that! Look at that MP10 covered in algae.
Oh,
more
that's
algae
what
than there is.
Now.
That did not get a lot of cleaning, but I did have Pulse and Xenia, which was cool.
I also like your little mushrooms at the bottom. You know, the blue mushrooms.
Yeah, I hated them because they just spread everywhere.
I haven't seen those sort of blue mushrooms in ages like that.
It's just boring, aren't they?
Well, maybe. Anyway,
they were easy to keep. But so that's the point. So that's the background. Is you've been in the hobby quite a long time. Me, not so much. 15 years for you, 8 years for me. And actually, in 8 years, things have changed. But in 15 years, things have changed a lot.
Yes, and I'm not sure how to go about doing this because usually we do it like one and one, don't we? But
yeah,
and I'm not even sure how the best way to. I've sort of done them into different sections, parts of the hobby. I've got like a little notes thing here, but basically, when I first started, there were no YouTube channels, so you had to learn from books. This was my very first book, basically, and this book is terrible. Now I look at it, it's rubbish because the information in this book, I'm sure that it was right at the time, but when I look at it now, it's so outdated. For example, it describes metal halides and T5s as alternative lighting, because obviously the lighting, I think, was obviously T8 bulbs for freshwater at the time. And the other thing that it describes, and LEDs aren't mentioned at all in it. And even when I first started, I can't remember there being any LEDs. They had the TMC had these like LED strips, I remember.
Yes.
And these square things. Those were now so I told you at the very beginning, before the stream. This isn't the information I'm going to give you is not necessarily accurate. Is accurate to my perception of what the hobby was like at the time. Because, for example, I think there's a lot more Acropora available now than there was 15 years ago. But that might be because I just wasn't looking to buy Acropora 15 years ago, so I didn't notice it. And I wasn't looking to get into LED lights at the time, so I didn't notice them because obviously I had T5 bulbs at the time. But I did actually look into it. Ecotech didn't even exist, I don't think, 15 years ago. I think that was when they invented their first product.
Yeah, which might have been the MP10 before with the old white box, not the black one.
the very first product they made actually didn't do very well. It was actually a dosing pump, or a type of dosing pump.
Right.
And I bet you've never heard of Ecotech's dosing pump, because it just didn't either they never made it. Oh yeah. They went back.
That's what I think of.
Yes. Well, the original one, I looked into this before the stream, because I wanted to see when Ecotech started. They started in a university dorm room. A few friends basically started it, and they got funding to create this product that they've designed, which was the dosing pump, and it didn't do very well. So then they went back to the drawing board, and then they invented the MP10. Although I don't know if it was the MP10 at the time. I think maybe that was what it was called. I don't remember. But and yes, it had the white box. So that was it. Basically, what I've realized is there's so much more variety now than there was 15 years ago. That's been the biggest change.
I think the biggest change has been in distribution of knowledge.
Yeah, that's true as well.
And I mean distribution in knowledge, because the one thing, so if you look back at 05, 07, you can find some amazing SPS Aquapora dominated tanks. Keith Berkelhammer, his Reef Bum, his first tank was about that time, and it looked fantastic. What was the American what's it called, forum that was back in the day before Reef?
Was it Webs Media?
No, that was Robert Fenner. It was I can't remember. But anyway, so back then people knew how
Reef
to
Central.
Reef Central, yes.
Yeah.
Reef Central tank of the month.
Obviously, there were some good people. It's just I wasn't a good person.
Well, this is it. But this is why I'm saying distribution of knowledge. Yeah. Because distribution of knowledge. Distribution is a key word, because back in the day, you wind back 20 years ago, people knew how to keep Aquapora. Keith Berkelhammer. People knew how to keep Aquapora. Okay, it was not. In fact, here we go. March 2009 is this tank of the month. So this is around the time you're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
That's not a bad tank.
He was doing.
That's all right. Well, they're actually looking at it. No, there are. I was going to say it's all Hystrix and Staghorns, which are easy, but there's a nice. That looks like a Icefire Echinata. In fact, there's some nice acros in there. That's a big old tank. That is, anyone from now would be proud of that tank. That is,
yeah.
And if I hadn't told you that was 2009, you wouldn't have said.
Know.
And this guy talks about he achieved success in 2003 with Tank of the Month. Maybe it didn't look like that, but anyway, back in the day, people knew how to keep Aquapora like that. It's just the thing is, it felt, and this is me not knowing because I wasn't there, but I think it was a small handful of people rather than everybody, and the knowledge just being out there and everywhere. Like you say, it's in books and in magazines occasionally.
Yeah.
Whereas now, there are a million tanks that look like that.
I think also, obviously, as people became to keep it more successfully, so there were Aquapora, but they were less common. And that's because people weren't necessarily buying them because they were considered much harder to keep alive. So if you're going to a fish shop back 15 years ago, you're going to go buy something that you don't really know how to keep alive, most people, or you're going to buy something that's more likely to live. And then if you're voting with your wallet, which is what people were doing, the shops would be less likely potentially to, as I said, it's hard because I don't know how much of this is my opinion and how much of this is fact. It's just what I remember. It's like I remember seeing a Canthrophilia when I was obviously younger. Just in shops. And I remember going to a shop and they had loads of them. Whereas you don't get a Canthrophilia so much anymore in the UK. I know they get them in America.
Do they?
But they're all, you see them all the time in America. It seems to be just us that can't have them.
So for those of you who don't know, this is an Acantophilia donut coral. Are they called donut corals? Massive, blobby, fleshy thing. But whenever I've seen them in the UK, and I've not seen one for a while, but they're expensive. You know, if you're getting change from a grand, you've done well.
I think I'm not 100% sure on this. I think they were banned from here a long time ago. So the ones you see are the ones that have come from other people's tanks. And obviously, as time goes by, people kill them. and then they get rarer and rarer and rarer.
Yeah.
I believe that's true. I'm not 100% sure. You don't see them so much anymore. Whereas I watched a video of Reefapalooza the other day, and there was a tank that had like 20 of them in. So they must be able to get them in America.
Yeah.
But
and there's so I did a video called what was it called? 5 minutes of useless information about reef tanks.
That's the title of all your videos, isn't it?
I know. Well, no, that is the content of all my videos, and the reason I'm mentioning that is I'm trying to find the Wikipedia page. I did a load of research for it. That was one of my favorite videos. I loved it, and yet when I went to it, just didn't really do very well. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because we've got 2010s wasn't the early days of reefing. For a start, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying this is, you were the birth of reef keeping.
No, it's just how it's changed in that time.
In the last 15 years, exactly. Yeah. And that's when you started. But
yeah,
early days of reefing was late 90s, early 2000s. In this video that I did the research for, and I can't find it, the first ever saltwater aquarium was like 1898.
Yeah,
it actually started to become more popular in the 50s.
Yeah.
Not that they were keeping corals then, but
I think Brighton Aquarium had saltwater tanks, and that's like one of the oldest aquariums in the world, because they used to just pump the seawater into the tanks.
Okay, but that's a public aquarium. But anyway, the point with that is that we're not saying, oh, you know what, 2007 was the first tank and I'm a pioneer and all this. It's just, look, this is how long you've been in the hobby for. This is what's changed, and it's interesting because 15 years, a lot has changed.
Yeah, for like, one of the perfect examples of that is that there was no automated testing. So automatic testing is pretty common these days for almost all parameters. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like we've been spoilt now, because we're now going, why isn't there a phosphate one? We want a phosphate one, like in last week. But 15 years ago, there wasn't an alkalinity one. There wasn't a calcium one. There wasn't one for magnesium. I'm not even sure the Hannah checkers were out 15 years ago.
I bet they weren't, and I was trying to think about that. We were talking about this before the show started. Before the stream started, and I was thinking, because the phosphate test kit I had, I was really lucky when I started the hobby. There was a guy called Cam Jones, who worked at Tropical Paradise, that since folded.
That was a good shop, I think, at one point. I don't know if it was when
it was a good shop, and Cam in particular was brilliant. He's been in the hobby for a million years. And he's had this enormous. It was like this fish tank, it's the biggest fish tank you've ever seen in your life. It was probably similar size as Polo Reef. Yeah, it was huge, vast, 17,000 gallons. It was massive. Anyway, he was the person I first spoke. Well, I spoke to a few people. I went into a couple of Maidenheads, and they were not really that useful. But then this guy spent a load of time with me. And he just talked me through so much stuff, and I'd forgotten what I was going to make a point. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, I remember his tank. It was in like a little conservatory.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially built in the garden. I remember thinking that was the most impressive tank I'd ever seen. Obviously, back when it first started, but I know he had to close it down. I don't know why, but I just remember seeing on Ultimate Reef.
Yeah, so and it'll take me a bit of time to actually find a photo of the tank, but this is the concern. This is what it was built for. That it went in that.
Yeah,
so that's how big it was, basically.
See, it's funny. I remember looking back at that, obviously a long time ago, and going, when was that posted? That picture.
Oh, let's have a look. It was run on natural sunlight, by the way. 2008. This was, so that perfect. 2008, perfect time.
Yeah, so I remember seeing that when I first started and going, wow, that's amazing. I remember he had all these tanks and everything. It's funny because I used to look at that and go, that guy must be the richest man in the world. And I think he just ran the fish shop, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what he did for a living. He definitely worked there, but I don't know what he did before. This was 2008, which is a while ago. So I don't know what he did for a living, but yeah, I don't. The thing is, people in the hobby generally aren't rich. It's just that you spend all your money on it.
Yes, true. That's
so instead of having a big house, you've got a big fish tank
or a nice car. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but it's more. It's worth it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's far more rewarding. But I'm trying to scan forward to find better photos. But anyway, that's the kind of time that we're talking about, when things were, you were talking about lighting options earlier.
Yes.
And the lighting options were basically metal halide or
sunlight,
T5 or natural sunlight, exactly. So, and I think that probably changed maybe a couple of years before I joined. Because when I joined, I wanted T5s, but I couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
And I ended up with some max spec razors, which were actually quite good. Well, actually, they were narrow beam, but anyway. But I think the Radeon Gen 2, maybe Gen 1 was out. So there was a Radeon did exist.
Yeah.
But when you were starting, it was just T5s or halides.
Yeah.
Did you ever have halides?
No. I had I had just two T5 bulbs on the first tank, which is why you can see I had hardly any corals. And then the upgrade when I had 8 T5 bulbs. Oh, that was such an upgrade. So, and I just remember I just put 2 pieces of wood. Basically, it wasn't wood. It was like I think I got acrylic bars made, and I just rested the T5 bulbs on top of the tank because I couldn't suspend them because there was nothing above. There was nothing above the tank. It was in like a hallway where it was like a double story, so I couldn't hang them. Otherwise, it'd look ridiculous. So I just literally just rested them on top of the tank, and that was a big deal for me. I didn't actually get into LEDs until the very start of this channel, which I think was probably 7 years ago, and I got the Hydra 52 HDs. No, not HDs, Hydra 52s, the original ones. Yeah, those were my first LEDs. My parents probably were like, "Why has the electricity bill come down considerably after he changed those 8 bulbs out?" But it's I'd never had halides, but purely because I assumed they would have been very expensive to run. But
I would still like to have halides. I would have liked to have had them, but realistically, I don't think it's ever going to happen. As much as anything, because of the heat. Also, not to mention the casticles, but I feel like I missed out. I would have liked to have tried them at some point.
The heat from those T5 bulbs was enough as well. If you put your hand in, you could really feel it. I suppose you have them, don't you? I think
I don't anymore because I changed them all the time. But I had them as recently as a month or so ago.
Yeah.
So Jamie's Reef is talking about internal protein skimmers.
He's just sent it to me. He sent me a picture of his. Yeah.
So with that then, because did you ever have an under gravel filter, or was that before your time even?
No, I had a just external filter, not an under gravel one. Was my first tank, I think. Yeah, it wasn't under gravel. But I had a hang on the back protein skimmer, and my first protein skimmer was actually square. The first one that went in the sump was square.
Oh, funny.
And they don't make those anymore, do they? They're all cone shaped.
Yeah.
So that was but yeah, it's sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying about Jamie's protein skimmer.
That was all I was saying. I just wanted to ask you about an under gravel filter, because back in the day, and I don't even know when these were, but they were under gravel filters, and they were awful from the sounds of it. My uncle had a saltwater tank long time ago. I think it might have even been in the 90s, but he said that he had an under gravel filter. I think he had a couple of clownfish or something, and maybe some others, and he used to have SPS corals, and they were white. And he used to scrub them to keep them white, because because people thought that was what they were supposed to look like, and that was about it.
Yeah,
but
they didn't stay white for long.
No, exactly. But that's even though that's going back a long time. But even in 15 years, things have changed a lot. So you had a time when LEDs didn't exist.
Yeah.
And even they didn't really start to get better and better for quite a while.
Yeah, true.
It was only around the time, I reckon, 2014, when I was getting into the hobby, that they were okay.
Yeah.
Because when they first came out, they were just like laser beams and like par monsters, and they had a bad reputation, didn't they? Exactly. Yeah, just melt everything.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Do you think that? I'm not sure how to put this. I think people used to argue on the internet more in the past than they do now. And the reason I say this is because people were arguing about anecdotal evidence. It wasn't fact-based evidence. It was like, for example, with the LEDs, we now know that certain corals need certain levels of PAR, and we can also test what PAR those LEDs are giving us. Before, people were just going, I run my tank at 70 and all the corals are fine. And someone else is going, I run my tank at 50 and they're all dead. So you're wrong. Whereas I think there's a lot more proof these days, and a lot more experiments have been done than before. People were sort of just winging it before and seeing what did and didn't survive.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this earlier because I was watching a Jamie Craig's video, and I'm going to bring this up on screen because I think anybody watching this, if you haven't already seen it, and it's on BRS, so it might have popped up. Watch this. Honestly, it's this one: spawning scalemia, LPS, and potential for sustainable coral production. It's the most recent video from. Have you seen it, Ryan?
I haven't seen that one. No.
It's 2,000 views. That's the thing. No one watched it. But it's the most recent video from BRS. It is absolutely fascinating. And the reason I started thinking about what you were saying there is because I was thinking at the moment there are channels like Bulk Reef Supply that do experiments. Yeah, but they're not scientific. They're fantastic. Don't get me wrong. They're amazing, and I love that they do all this microbiome stuff.
Yeah,
a real insight that we couldn't have known before. We might have been able to have a guess at it, but actually showing that it works is another level, and that is for the hobby is amazing. But the hobby is run on anecdotes, isn't it? It's like I'll say, hey, do you know what? I've got Kessels. They run at 400 par, whatever, and it is great. And I use dry rock and it's fine, all this sort of stuff. But it's like, well, it doesn't mean anything. Whereas Jamie Craig's, watch that video, the stuff he talks about. Yeah, we've got a scientist working in our hobby, and actually in our hobby, and it's like, and he can tell you how to do a million things. So instead of, and he works things out the way a scientist does. So instead of me going, I should write that and see what happens, he monitors, tests, and has a control and all this sort of stuff. So and he will be able to tell you for a fact, rather than you or I saying, do this. He'll be able to tell you for a fact, if you do this, if you do X, Y will happen. So the more he gets into the hobby, and the more that spreads, the better. Because instead of working on anecdotes and experience, we're working with scientific facts. It'd be amazing.
Yeah. Is that is it an easy watch, or is it, because the biome one wasn't an easy watch, but it was the most interesting one for me.
The biome started as an easy watch. I found I'm rewatching it, and I actually. I watched it first time around, and I watched it at 2x speed because I was like, yeah, come on. And it was the second time around I'm watching it. The first couple are okay, but then when there's like 25 minutes of this is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3, and then a different tank, this is week 1. It's you've got to be in the right mood for it. It's hard work actually, and I can see why people don't necessarily watch it. But this is, for me, it was an easy watch because it was fascinating. Yeah. And it's not like that was just like a load of data, which is boring. This tells you things that you didn't know, and it's just even simple things like he was talking about. So he's found a way to breed scollies basically from scratch.
Oh, really?
Which is just as well because they're going to stop importing them at some point, I suspect. And he can do it basically a drop of a hat. And one of the things he found is, people always say scollies like colder water.
Yes, yeah.
And that's generally accepted. I think most people accept that 24 degrees is probably the limit of where you want to go, maybe 25 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
He just showed up this chart of the temperature in the part of Australia where these are collected.
Yeah. And
it does get up to about 27, 28 degrees C. But the bottom, the coolest it gets is 19 degrees. And this was the chart for all year round. And it showed, so just a simple thing like that, instead of saying, like Chris from ACI Agriculture says, hey, scollies don't like warm water. It's like, I'm not putting Chris down because fucking hell, he's amazing for the hobby. But that's his anecdotal, like you say, anecdotal experience. Whereas now you've got, and I'm sure he's seen all these graphs, but when you've got a scientist posting up a graph saying it lives in 19 degrees for 3 months of the year, it's like, oh yeah, seeing is believing. It's the difference, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I will watch actually because I like anything that's interesting like that. I quite enjoy. So it's but you so it was funny because you mentioned breeding scollies. I'm going to go back to obviously what was different. It was almost unheard of to breed any other fish other than clownfish or Banggai cardinals. at the time.
Yeah, okay.
I remember, I'm sure somewhere, I always thought that it was actually impossible. This is what I was told, to breed tanks in captivity. I couldn't remember why I thought, but as far as I was concerned, it was considered impossible to do because of their life cycle. And then obviously it's now been done. So I just remember, I must have watched a video or something somewhere where they go, oh, we can breed freshwater fish for these reasons, but saltwater fish are very different, which is why we can't breed them. And so I always was under the impression that basically breeding anything other than clownfish and Banggai cardinals originally was impossible. And I know that there was a problem with regards to the very, very early stages, what they eat. And then they discovered that there's a really, really microscopic copepod that they eat. And that's how that was the breakthrough to how breeding was doable, basically. And I think that how they found that out was they basically was taking seawater and all the plankton stuff and putting it in with the baby fish and seeing what they ate.
Interesting. But that's how we find these things out, is we try. It's not impossible to breed any fish. You just need to work it out. And if there's financial reasons to. But back in the day, so I had Banggai cardinals breed in my first tank.
Yeah.
I found a couple in the sump one day. But it was just clownfish and Banggais. There was nothing else.
No, yeah, definitely. There was nothing else at all. And I think we are just we're just starting the breeding process of fish and stuff like that. Because as you say, there has to be some sort of financial backing and financial reason to do it. But if they all of a sudden say, well, you can't collect these fish anymore, all of a sudden people will be far more interested in breeding lots of different things. But it's the fact they can breed cockbands now as well is like, it's insane. And mandarins, these are hard enough to just keep alive, let alone breed them.
And but have you ever seen mandarins in the wild? Their mating behavior.
They spin around, don't they?
They do. And actually, I've seen this in my tank, to be fair. But if you look at, there's like a load of them. They're really aggressive, like nasty fish. Actually, wouldn't think it. The males are horrible, but they do this thing where they're all over the place and they shoot up together and do their thing, and then fertilize eggs, all that sort of stuff. But that's how, when you see that, and if you see a video of how to do it, that's the easy point to work out. Then you just go, all right, well, let's just go and practice that. Yeah, you just put one male in with 100 females in a big enough tank, and then work it out. I'm sure it's not quite that easy, but
it's.
Talk about. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, it's funny you should make, just very quickly, it's funny you mentioned aggressive mandarins, because I have a video where my male mandarin has the entire fin of my clownfish in its mouth and it won't let go. The clownfish is like swimming up like this and the mandarin will not let go. And it's got the whole fin in its mouth. So it's on one of my videos somewhere. It'll probably be on my phone, the old video. But when I saw it, I was like, what is going on?
I've never seen. So I've seen them in the wild be aggressive with each other, with other males. But even in my tank, they were just. It was like there were no other fish in there. They were just. If I didn't know better, I think they were blind, because it's like they're not aware of anything else.
Yeah.
But
I'll see if I can find a video for you, and I'll send it to you later if I can find it. But I don't know if I will be able to. But sorry, you're about to continue.
Yeah, so other stuff that changed then, and we'll get forward to the point at in several years down the line when I can contribute. But we're a while away yet.
Okay, so
the corals was the other thing that. Have you've got a list?
Yeah, I got a list of things.
Yeah,
there's loads of equipment that there was no algae reactors, all sorts of weird equipment that didn't exist. But the one thing I showed you earlier. Was that algae magnets had no blades on them. I think this has been revolutionary for the hobby. And as I said to you earlier, what we used to do, I'm sure you would have seen these before. You know those long sticks with the scraper on them? So you're scraping the tank, basically. We used to cut those, the blades off those and then stick them onto an algae magnet. And then you could use it to clear off coralline algae, and then obviously I'm not sure who it was who did it first, but I think it was the flipper magnet people that did it first. They actually made a proper one for us, It's just funny that that's what we used to do.
I mean, it's funny that a manufacturer copied, like, it had been invented, and someone just out there went, I can make that better and I'll do it properly, professionally. And I know people are going to buy it because it's what everyone does.
Yeah. It makes me, it's like nostalgia. It makes me smile when I look back at the thing we used to do. But
because
Jamie's
so my first algae. Sorry.
I was going to say, Jamie's just said that as everyone got a Mastertronic. There definitely weren't any Mastertronics back then. But your first...
No. My first algae magnet was a mag float, the floating ones. Do you remember the big old chunky ones? I'm trying to bring a picture up. I'll be with you in a second. It's on Instagram. And they were rubbish.
They were the ones that had just like a pad under it, wasn't there? They didn't, or did they have a blade?
No blade. Yeah. I think you can now get a blade attachment for them. I don't know when that came in, but they were awful. Like if you rub the algae off every day, they're fine. If you leave it for 2 days, it gets too grippy for it, and you're stuffed.
yeah. And well, those were the things that we were sticking the blades to, probably for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was that an absolute nightmare to get the blade right and get it at the right angle and the right level off the glass and all that?
I'll be honest with you. When I say, so I actually first got it from, so I bought a tank and someone had done it, and that was the first one I ever had, and he had done it properly. And then I did try it myself, but if you think about it, I can't really remember how I did it. You just you just had to like glue it on a flat surface,
right? And
then and it sort of just worked basically, because obviously you would assume a flat surface is the same as a flat glass, but they did come off. I remember that. I remember them like popping off as you were going around, and then you're like, oh God, do this again.
And then you reach into the top and like push it around and be like, come back.
Yeah. I used to use a credit card as well, or not a credit card, like just one, like a card that did it.
Card,
yeah. But or again, as I said, one of those scrapers. There were no bounce mushrooms. At the time, there were no bounce mushrooms at all. Those are a relatively new coral for the hobby. And as I said to you earlier, the corals were mostly green. Now, I don't know if that's because... So England is not the pinnacle of reef keeping in the world. I think China gets the best stuff. Then America gets the stuff after that, and then we get like the leftovers.
Oh, really? I'm surprised China gets first dibs.
I'm pretty sure it's China.
Apparently, Japan is big as well.
Wait, I think
anyway.
it could be, maybe it's the Asian country. I'm not sure. All I know is that they're the big ones.
But so with that, then, so the like corals and all that sort of stuff. So when I joined the hobby in 2014. Which is not that long ago. I remember a couple of times complaining to my local fish shop that corals were either red or green.
Yeah.
And that was partly because I hadn't discovered SPS properly at that point. If I bought an SPS coral, it was a Monty or a Hystrix, and I wasn't brave enough to go aqua, and I stripped the aquas that I did buy. Although actually, I think in hindsight that was because I was buying wild aquas. I think that was my mistake. But anyway, part of my mistake. But all the corals were green or red, basically. That was it. You can have any color you want as long as it's green or red. But one thing I did think, because there's probably more variety now, I think. But I did think that, and I mentioned this earlier, and this always comes up on Ultimate Reef. So with back in the day when you had T5 lights and you had a green torch coral, if you put blue LEDs over that, that's going to look different, because if you put like a dragon soul or whatever under T5s, they look a bit rubbish. So I do wonder if we had all the same corals, or certainly some of them, but they just didn't look, you just didn't know what they looked like under a different lighting. So it's the lighting that changed that rather than the corals. I think it's probably a mixture of the two.
It's funny because even as we're going, I'm still thinking of more things. I just thought of that used to get colonies of corals for like pennies, not pennies, but like hardly anything. Like I remember my first torch coral had like 8 heads on it, and it was like £25. It was,
and that's what Opinionated Reef is saying. He's saying that the LFS told him that gold torches and hammers were worthless because they look brown under 10k metal halides.
Yeah, true. And the other thing I just remembered, gem tangs used to be like £1,500. and now they've
Yeah.
like they're the only fish that's getting cheaper.
Yeah, it's true. They're what? Why were they so expensive? Were they rare or difficult to catch or something? What?
Originally, they were. I believe this is correct. Originally, they were only collected off the coast of Mauritius. Mauritius collects other fish. I think it's Mauritius. I'm pretty sure it's Mauritius.
Yeah.
They collect other fish, but those fish are more expensive than if you bought those fish from a different supplier, say Indonesia. So and the other thing was the fish had to go from Mauritius to South Africa to a holding to another place to then get to us. So there's usually a reason why. And then the other thing was in Mauritius, you only find them singly because they're not really from around that area. Now, South Africa, which is where they're from, you can find whole shoals of them. But they didn't, either they weren't collected or they weren't collectors there at the time, I believe.
Right. Okay.
So now that we can get them relatively easily, the price has come down. The price stayed high for a long time, even though we could get them relatively easily because people wanted to keep the price high.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. Well, they're still 500-600 quid where I've seen.
Finest had them, I think, for like 285 or something, 290 the other day. And I just think, imagine if you bought one for 1,500, and it's like the cost difference is insane.
Finest, Finest is up north. It's miles away from me, and I probably won't ever go there unless I'm visiting. I've got mates in Manchester, so maybe, but unlikely. But they seem to, their prices always seem to be fairly sensible.
Yes,
and maybe it's because rent is different in the north and I live in the south or whatever. But anytime I see, like, they had Kingy Angels for 600 quid.
Did they?
When down here, I know. When down here, they were like $5,000.
Yeah, no, I know.
1,500 quid. Sorry, I'm lying. 1,500 quid, and they were like $5,000 to $7,000 down here.
Yeah.
So Finest always seem to have sensible prices, but.
Yeah. Oh, it says 275 from Finest and Kraken. I think you said Finest and Kraken work together now, so
they are one and the same. Yeah, I found out recently they are. Hang on, I'm just going to block that dating website.
That place loves you.
I know. I block it every week, and it comes back. It's like YouTube, take it anyway.
I just wonder how they know. How do they know that we're live streaming?
I don't know. You must be able to find a bigger channel as well. With like tens of thousands of people, not two
just
like
fish
a
weirdos
bunch of fish nerds. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, but no, Finest and Kraken are now the same. Finest bought Kraken.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I
mean, if you buy something from Kraken, for a start, you don't get the sweets in them anymore. Apparently, they used to get a stick of rock, little bits of rock, didn't you? But
did you know that?
Yeah, but but anyway, but Finest bought Kraken, which I thought was quite a big move because Kraken are big for the UK anyway.
Yeah.
So I did wonder, and I asked on a forum if there was if anyone knew if this is like the start. I wonder if it was the start of a string of purchases or something. Because if you got money to buy Kraken, why not expand? But no one really knew. So
when they come for us,
I know. Buying out Reef Dork and Prestige Reef, gutted, no sweets with Kraken anymore. It's so funny that's like a thing, but
it is actually. It's interesting because for the other company, it's the supplier sends sweets, and the engineers buy them because they get sweets. That's the only reason.
This this Mosey says yellow tangs used to be 30 quid. It wasn't that long ago because this was pre-Hawaii, wasn't it? What, 2 years ago? Do you reckon?
Yeah,
3 years ago.
Probably that.
Certainly 5 years ago, they were that kind of money. And now I went to two shops today and yesterday, and there was 300 quid for a wild one.
Yeah, I know.
I did see that, and I was like, that's taking the mick a bit. But I bet it was from someone's tank.
Yeah,
and they must just be like, well, that's what people will pay because wild are better than captive.
I know you're at Maidenhead, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I know. So the capture bred one was at Maidenhead Borden. Yeah.
Yes, because I remember seeing it going. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But Maidenhead Borden's actually all right.
No, I know. The only reason I was a bit disappointed there was because they told me they had a black tang, and I went there to go see it, and it wasn't a black tang. It was a black tang hybrid, and they were they went, yeah, we know, and I'm like, well, you could have told me before I drove an hour and a half.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Kraken postal service has gone down. That's a shame because Kraken was always. I've used them once since Fine's bought them out, and this is just one person saying it, so who knows?
But why would that change? You would assume the people there are the same. I don't know.
Well, I mean, things change, don't they? But that was I used to use Kraken for two reasons. One, because they were really quick. It's like Amazon for fish.
Yeah.
Well, for like dry goods anyway. But two, because they were really good customer service. So if they stuffed something up, you'd phone them and you'd get a happy voice at the end of the phone and they'd fix it straight away and help you out. So I'm hoping that continues anyway, because like you say, it'll still be the same. But there you go. Postage now from the finest warehouse. Right. So they've bought out their website essentially. So it's probably different people. Anyway, what were we saying? Yeah. So torch corals that now cost you 1,500 quid for a single head just would have looked brown or green 15 years ago.
I wonder how many people that have been in this hobby for 20 years and they've got all these old corals that they had for ages and they're just sitting on this gold mine and they're like, oh, I should probably change to LEDs, but they've just been growing fine under metal halides, and they put them on and all of a sudden everything's gold and they're like, oh. It's I've only really got one. I probably will keep thinking. I've got a few ones I've sort of half mentioned as we're talking, but there's one thing which I think is actually quite significant. The hobby or the industry has moved from live rock to man-made rock quite significantly. Live rock's actually quite hard to get hold of these days. I'm not even sure. If you can get actual live rock from the sea anymore, maybe from other people's
get
tanks.
it from Australia. In the UK anyway, you can get it from Australia. So my local fish shop, Reefkeeper Windsor, occasionally gets stuff in from Australia. And my water box I set up with Aussie live rock. And at first it looked pretty plain, and then after a month or two I started to get stomatella snails and brittle stars and all this sort of stuff. But it wasn't like an abundance. Like the first live rock I got in 2014, just sponges everywhere, aptasia, unfortunately, but all sorts of crazy stuff. And now it's not the same. I don't know if that's just because they don't get it from Fiji, or if it's because the shipping isn't as careful or whatever. But there was some freaky shit on. Like when I broke down my first tank that was 100% live rock. I was lifting out one of the rocks, and there was this enormous sponge, obviously non-photosynthetic, under the bottom. And when I touched it, I was like, ah! It really freaked me out. It was disgusting. But
it's I think I was incredibly lucky, but with my first live rock, because I bought it secondhand from another reefer, and there was nothing on it, nothing in terms of nothing bad. It had coralline algae and everything on it, not a single aptasia, as far as I know. Now, it's entirely possible I had no idea what I was looking at. It could have been covered in flatworms and everything. But I just look back and go, I never did I deal with a single aptasia in my tank until obviously I started importing corals, and they were on the corals when I was importing them.
Right.
So my 1,000-litre tank not once had an aptasia in it, and that was I was probably in the hobby 10 years by that point. I'd never dealt with one. So I think I got very lucky.
But actually, so Inappropriate Reefer says you can get Indo live rock. It's just expensive. Even the Aussie stuff I got I think it was £25 a kilo. So if you were getting, what's 25 times 25? Why can't I do those maths?
I bought 100 kilos originally.
Bloody hell. So I bought 25 kilos is what I bought for my main tank. It was real reef rock, so it wasn't expensive. That 600 quid for live rock at that price. And it's too expensive now. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because
interesting. I'm interested in what you're about to say, but I have my opinion on this is definitely different to yours. If you say that.
Okay, so no, I'm not. So the reason I say that is because the way I set my tanks up now, well, with the exception of the water box, which I set up with live rock. But the way I set it up now is man-made rock, because I prefer, for a number of reasons, I prefer the shapes you can make, all that sort of stuff. But I like to have a piece of live rock, so I buy a piece of live rock for my LFS. Ideally, put it in the sump, but if not, put it in the main tank, and then I've got some in there at least. So that's what I like to do, and that's the way I've set up the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 tanks I've had. I've set up with man-made rock, and I've seeded it with some live rock, proper live rock.
Yeah.
And that works for me. This microbiome series from BRS. I've not got to the money shot yet and found out what is the best way of doing it, but that works for me, and it does. That seems to do well. And the theory for me, of course, is that you're getting all of the benefits of the live rock. It might take a bit more time to establish, but without so many of the downsides. Although, I did that for my Fluval Evo, a couple of small bits of live rock, live rock, sorry, and I've got Aptasia in there already. So I need to get some big ears in there.
I thought about if I did it again, I would get. Have you ever had the Red Sea Carbon? You get these little like filter bags with it. I'd put rock in one of those bags and put it in the coral farm in the dark. So that you've got all the benefit of the bacteria, nothing can grow on it, and then there's nothing, like, just in case anything slips through or whatever. I only want the bacteria. That's all I want, just to see if it would work. But
get a microscope and like pick the bacteria off one by one.
Yeah, it's I think that the starting phase of the hobby, is much harder now than when I did it the first time. Now, that could be because I just got 100 kilos of live rock, threw 100 kilos in, and then it's almost like I did go through a cycling stage, but everyone seems to get diatoms these days. Everyone gets dinoflagellates. There's all these things. Everyone has bacterial problems. I didn't get any of these when I first started.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's because dinos seem to be a much more common now than they were 10 years ago.
Yes, and it's because, and I only learnt this from that microbiome series, it's because our tanks were sterile and then one thing was taking over. Whereas if you put live rock in, it's almost like you've got the pest and the predators that are eating the pests.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, I had other issues like cyano and stuff like that from not knowing what I was doing. But I definitely didn't have... I found the Red Sea tank, actually, that process of setting it up, it was good to set it up and everything, but when I introduced corals, it was like an explosion of all these things, and I was like, I've never had to deal with any of these before. Because of every tank I just upgraded, so you just take the stuff out and put it into a new tank. You don't recycle it. And I was surprised at how hard, like, they hit, like diatoms and dinoflagellates hit that tank. And turf algae was the other one. Turf algae was a big deal, and a lot of people that use man-made rock get turf algae now.
Yeah, okay. So I had more algae on my live rock tank than I have on my current ones.
Oh,
maybe I've got more algae grazers. One thing I was going to say, actually, before we'll come back on and keep going on that. But you guys at home, tell me in the chat and in the comments if you're watching this after, but particularly in the chat, really interested to know, when did you guys join the hobby? Just put the year you joined. Because I bet there's going to be some people who've been around a few years. I think Canadian Reef Master I saw earlier was talking about 90s or something like that. So tell us what year you joined the hobby.
I'd also be interested in if we've missed something. What have they seen change?
Absolutely, yeah. And just to answer this quickly, the filter media reactors, they're called Seach something or other. You can hear them, but on my tank downstairs, they're it's not a loud tank, but you can't hear them over everything else. On my tank upstairs, it's the loudest thing, so it does buzz a bit. So yeah, here we go. God, I've opened a can of worms, so I'm not going to be able to post everyone. But 2012, 2017, 2010, 2011, 2000, 2016, 2022, 2016, 2002, 98. Here we go. We're going back a few years. So Valhalla 99. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah. On and off and on 30 years.
Oh, you're in for a rough ride, the 2 weeks guy.
Yeah. So there you go. So quite a few people from kind of 90s. It must have been a nightmare, but because you're basically saying it's harder now, though. I think that the thing that makes it easier now for me is that was knowledge. So the difference, like there was the way I started was on Ultimate Reef, like looking for knowledge. That's where I was looking for stuff. But when I started as well, Bulk Reef Supply 52 Weeks of Reefing was out.
Okay.
Maybe a year in, I can't remember. It was around that time. And there's forums are one thing, and they're really useful, and you should, it's well worth signing up to one. But there's just something about clicking on a video and watching someone explain it and show it to you, and it's like, now I get it. And that, like, the proliferation of information in that format, particularly from Bulk Reef Supply, who have just been the masters of it, basically, that's changed everything for me, and I find it easier because of all of that. The downside of that is there's a lot of information out there. And everyone will say different things, and it's like, who's right? They've both got amazing tanks. They've both been doing it 30 years.
It wasn't that it's more difficult now. I think the cycle is very different now to what it was before. We went from cycling a tank with lots and lots of bacteria and actual life to cycling a sterile tank with adding ammonia or adding a bacterial product. It's a very different experience of the two. And I think that BRS actually, in that biome cycling, they found the live rock, especially in the first bit, did much better than the sterile tanks. Because as soon as you added something to the sterile tanks, they just went crazy with a pest. Because it was like a free-for-all. There was nothing there to compete with them. And I think, and that was when I watched it, I went, oh my God, that is why it's taken all this time for me to realize that's why the Red Sea tank cycling was actually harder than my original cycle. And it was because of the rock.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't. Oh, no, do you know what? I did have some problems. The problems I had with my my Red Sea Reefer Peninsula 500, it's been running just over 4 years, 4.5 years maybe. Problems I had with that, I had cyano at the start ish.
Yeah.
I don't know how long in. I didn't ever have dinos, but the problems I had with that were I had a rusty MP40. And it was killing all my SPS, and I couldn't work it out for ages. And then suddenly I took the MP40 apart, and I was like, and everything after that, everything turned around. But the problems I had related to cycling, I did have cyano. I can't remember how long it was, but apart from that, it was fine. I didn't really have any. I've never really had any major algae problems. Now that's because I've got algae eaters, because it grows where they can't eat. But back in the day. When I started the tank, I didn't have that many algae eaters. I had a fox face, and that was about it. So I didn't have mega problems with dry rock and a couple of pieces of live rock.
That might have been where I can't remember what I first put in the Red Sea tank. But what I do know is as soon as because I was closing down the 1,000-litre tank at the time, and I put basically all my tanks from the 1,000-litre tank into the Red Sea tank, and they just annihilated the algae basically overnight. And then, because this was something that someone spoke to, I spoke to someone on the consultation thing, an Australian guy who was saying, I've got an algae problem, but no phosphate. And that was exactly what was happening in the Red Sea tank. And as soon as the fish ate the algae and then digested it, it then dissolved into the water column, and all of a sudden your phosphate shoots up. So for ages, I couldn't work out why there was no phosphate in the tank.
Do you know what? That is one thing that's changed a lot, is attitude toward nitrate and phosphate.
Yes, true.
And this kind of so it used to be that, and this isn't that long ago, if you had algae, and it's still the case to a point, but the first thing people say is, what are your nitrate and phosphate? And like, my nitrate and phosphate is disgusting. Like, if I told you what it was and didn't show you my tank, you'd be like, is that like 99% algae and 1% water? But the attitude towards that has changed now, because it's not just like, oh, it needs to be ultra low, mega zero. You know, it needs to be, it doesn't really matter. It's like, if you've got algae, all right, do some water changes, get some better source water, and chuck in a load of tanks.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get algae, so you get something that eats it.
I remember nitrate was actually a far more difficult thing to deal with as well when I first started, because there was no Nopox. And I think Nopox was the first one, but again, that almost came from reef. I assume reefers were experimenting with vodka.
Yeah.
and
in the
then
tank.
and and sometimes in their mouths when they couldn't solve their problem with their tank.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then obviously Nopox is basically, I think it's ethanol, which is essentially the same thing, I believe. It's like,
that you make alcohol with ethanol, whatever.
Yeah, but that's I think that's what Nopox is. It does say contains ethanol on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so a lot of things I think were done by reefers for a period of time, and then a manufacturer went, I could put a label on that.
Yeah, and give you instructions, so it's not just pissing in the wind and guessing like, how much vodka do I need to pour in, and vodka, it was vodka, sugar, and vinegar.
Yes, it was.
You could use all three if you want, which some people did, or one or the other, whatever. But
yeah,
and people still do it. But just if you've got, and there are guides out there, but it's just better to get. It's easier to get a bottle, isn't it? And Nopox isn't that expensive, for example. There are loads of other carbon dating as well. It's not that expensive. You don't use much of it, and there's instructions to say use 1 milliliter per 100 liters, rather than just glug a load of Smirnoff.
Yeah, because that's what it almost like that. I remember Nopox being first, and then bio pellets became a thing where you put them in a reactor and then they like move around and obviously they break down and you skim out. It's the same thing.
I've never that's it. I've never used bio pellets, but that's just carbon dating effectively, right?
Yeah, it's basically an uncontrolled way of carbon dosing because you can strip out everything quite easily with bio pellets.
You can control it by adding more or using less.
Yes,
but it's just not as easy because you don't just drop it in.
Yeah.
And Les is taking advantage that Sean from the Ocean Project, isn't he? Talking about he wants to use natural seawater.
I use that for that was what I was doing as well originally. I use natural seawater. I've done all sorts of stupid things. How
did you get on with
that? I used natural seawater for probably a good few years, not on the very first tank, but after that. The problem was most people are smart. And what they do is they get a pump and they pump the water into cans and then they put it into their car. What I was doing was I had waders and I would go when I'd look when slack tide was, so it was completely still, and I would go in my waders and I'd fill up the jerry cans and and people used to come and ask me what I was doing all the time. And every time someone came to ask me, I would tell them a different story. So once I was checking the beach for cleanliness. I was doing a science experiment. Once I told them it was about my marine tank. But people were nosy and they always were interested in what I was doing. But the problem with it, and this was the last time I went, I probably did, as I said, for about 2 years. Rain or snow, would go and do it because I needed to do a water change. And then one time I got there at the wrong time. And the tide was starting to build up.
Okay.
And it knocked me over in my waders. And I was half an hour from home. And I went, that's it. Never again. And
that could have been a lot worse.
Well, I literally had to drive home soaking wet, like completely drenched. And never again. So So look, Les is laughing. He's saying slack tide. You just go to a place.
6 meters deep. But there's a place called Bosham in Chichester, and it's called there's this thing called the Bosham Car Wash because there's the tide comes in and people park by the pub when the tide's gone out, and then the tide comes in at walking pace. It's that fast. It's rising really quick. And then people come back to their car an hour later. And it's up to the roof, covered in water.
Really?
Not quite that, but it's literally it's swamped basically. So and it happens all the time. If you go onto YouTube and search Bosham car, be it Bosham, it's pronounced Bosham, it's spelled Bosham car wash. It's got it, but so that's not a good idea. Wading into because you could have drowned at worst case scenario.
Yeah, I also the other thing because remember, I actually if you think about it, I was wearing waders which are heavy.
Yeah,
and when they're full of water, that really would have been dangerous. So I've done all sorts of stupid things in the past, but I'm now looking back. I'm like, that really was stupid. It also had a cigarette butt in it once, but which when I got it home, it had a cigarette in it, and I was like, probably shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, there you go.
No condoms though. You have to go to Brighton for that.
No condoms. Okay. I was going to ask you something else then as well about what's next on your list? And I'll remember.
No, I think my list is basically done. Because the only thing I was going to say was that the original YouTubers were Mr. Saltwater Tank and New York Stilo, and I saw someone mention. Yeah, I saw someone mention New York Stilo.
That's what I was going to do. Yeah.
Mr. Saltwater Tank at the time was like the BRS of it, and New York Stilo was like me, where you just it was just a guy winging it with a camera.
Oops. So I didn't know New York Stilo. He was before my time. So when I started, it was Dan's Reef, Aaron's Aquarium, some chick on called Miss Water Tank. I don't know who she was. And, I
bet you learned a lot from her.
I couldn't. A lot of fish care guides actually. I didn't used to watch Miss Saltwater Tank.
Pardon?
I didn't used to watch Miss Saltwater Tank.
No, me either.
No, well, no. Anyway, so Bulk Reef Supply was starting, and they were starting to get better because if you look at the BRS early videos, it's Ryan like proper Wayne's World haircut, and he's just like, so this is what you want to do now, and you want to get an RO filter. And it's like, oh, mate. But when I started watching him, he was like perky and up, and just suddenly he'd worked it out. But so there was back in the day, it was New York Stilo. So he was just some random like a vlogger basically.
He wasn't professional at all. It was just literally just some guy with a fish tank. And look, he got thousands of views, and people obviously enjoyed it. And I don't remember watching many of them, but I do remember watching it. But it literally was just him going, "Oh, look, this is my clownfish today, and I've just set up this refugium." Whereas with Mr. Saltwater Tank, it was more like, "This is how you set up a refugium," rather than just But it's funny because he must have been such a character, New York Stilo, because so many people still remember him. And for people to remember you after all this time, you've got to have something about you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, people did like him. There's a question I'll come on to in a sec, but and people still talk about him like, like he was I don't know, just he was really popular, whatever. But so who else was around? You had Mr. Saltwater Tank.
Yes, yeah, and I can't really remember. Was Tidal Gardens? No, I don't really remember anyone other than them.
I'm gonna look on Bulk Reef Supply and see when their oldest video is. I was watching there was a reef Reef Builders reef therapy thing video the other day with Than from Tidal Gardens.
Yeah,
really good, well worth watching. That was listening to be honest. It was old, but he was saying that he only started up about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, so
I know. Loosely before, and he's only really kicked it on in the last 5 years. The oldest Bulk Reef Supply video is 14 years old.
Oh, so they would have just started afterwards then.
But they were just like they were painful at the time.
I know obviously we're talking about it, but if you take a second to think about what life was actually like having no YouTube videos to learn about stuff.
And even I'm gonna actually play this. Okay, so this is the audio will come through the speakers. This is what the personality was like.
Reefsupply.com. This is a demonstration of our two-part solution. It's a easy and affordable way to maintain alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium.
Mate, cheer up.
What's the first Reef Dork video like? Is it perky?
Do you know what? It's all right. My first Reef Dork video, I found a video I made before I set up the Reef Dork channel properly, and that was a bit amateur. But the first ever Reef Dork video, like, because you go back sometimes and watch old videos of channels you like, and they're shocking. But the first ever Reef Dork video where I talk was the third one. It was a review of an algae reactor. It's terribly edited. I don't think it had a microphone. And it was a little bit waffly, but it was actually, I think it was all right, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't, it's got better.
My first video was so edited that I looked like a different person.
Yeah, well,
that took it so long to click for you.
I was thinking of the thumbnail photo, and I was like, yeah, okay. I remember when you did the first video when you like you came out of the shadow and you were saying like I was thinking I don't know if I should carry on or not, and I just thought I'd see, and just that was like I was like, oh wow, this is.
I look back at that now. You know how sometimes in life there's like a turning point or like a fork in the road. And it's interesting. Like a lot of people wouldn't know this. I don't think I've ever actually said this. I obviously I disappeared for 6 months with my channel. Or some people do, like some people don't know this, but where have you gone?
I've just put you center. I'm still here.
I see. I was like, that's weird. So obviously some people will know this and some people won't. Originally I started the channel with my partner, and she was the face of the channel. And then we weren't together. And anyway, I then had to make a video to go, look, it was me in the background. And I want to keep the channel going. And I made that video and I showed it to my family and they said, just don't do it. Give up, let it go, close the channel down. And that's it. You had your run. It was fun at the time, but it's over. And then one person said to me, just do it. It'll be a laugh. And I posted that video and by doing that significantly changed my life. I wouldn't have the coral farm, would I? I wouldn't have the YouTube channel. I'd never would have met you. You know, you're like my best friend. So it's funny how I put Alex as like my best friend and Alex puts me as like his worst friend who just scrapes through.
Yeah, you're just basically, as soon as you stop doing these live streams, you're done. So
it's
discouraging.
The only reason I wanted to mention it is because it's funny how we have these pinnacle moments in our lives and we don't know at the time that we have these choices. And if you go down one route, it can be this. And if you go down the other route, it'll be this. And it was the best thing I ever did, bringing the channel back. Because look, you can see it's like I do what I love now. So
yeah, this
is some advice for anyone out there thinking, you know, if you've got a big decision, just if everyone says don't do it, just do it. Just listen to that one person.
It's the things you don't do that you regret.
True.
And actually, just so mentioning the first ever video, and I just said that my first ever video wasn't that bad. Actually, I'm changing my mind. Right, the lighting's a bit.
Oh my god! I've never seen that video.
So the actual review of the product is decent, but actually, I used to do this thing. I thought I needed like a hook and like a catchphrase, and so I used to say,
play that. You have to play that.
Oh, I'll play it in a sec. But I had this. I used to think that I used to say, I can't remember what it was, but I used to introduce myself and be like, and at the end, I used to sign off by saying, "Thank you, good night," which was I got from Phone Jacker, and I thought it was brilliant. And then after, like when I watched it back, I was like, "Oh, you don't need a catchphrase. It's so corny." But this is the.
I like how you look like you're basically a drunk guy with a fish tank.
It's like I'm falling asleep, doesn't it?
You're like this.
So this is 2018. Are you ready?
Yeah, you look like you've hit the gym since then as well.
I don't know about that.
Greetings YouTube, I am the Reef Dork, and today I'm going to give you my first impressions of the ALR algae reactor. Now it comes in three sizes. You've got,
and that's greetings YouTube. Oh, sod off, mate. I am the Reef Dork. My name is Alex. Oh, I hated it. That's cringy.
What made you? I know we've gone off track, but as I said, I've finished my list. Unless you've got some to you do. But what made you start your channel?
Do you know what? There's a couple of things. So I started a motorbike channel before that, and it never took off really. And it was really difficult to make videos. I liked making videos. I just found it interesting, but it was really difficult to make videos on a motorbike because you had to go out on your bike, had to think about what you were saying, and then you had to go out on your bike, and it would take hours. Whereas with the fish tank, I was like, it's right there. I can just make a video. And there wasn't that much. I didn't think there were that many. So the best thing for me to say right now is, oh, I was really inspired by X channel or Y channel or whatever, and I wanted to replicate them. Yours, obviously. But the honest answer is, and this is completely honest,
the money.
There are some... No, certainly not for money. But the honest answer is, there were some channels that were out there at the time. There weren't that many channels out there, and the ones that were, I thought I could do better than. because there were loads. Oh, I'm gonna have to say it. Dan's Reef.
Oh, I remember Dan's Reef. Yeah.
This is the thing, and Dan's Reef was fine. I had no problem. A lot of people didn't like Dan's Reef. I never really got it, but a lot of people didn't like him. I had no problem with him. I thought he was perfectly fine, and there was some useful stuff he put out. I actually quite liked his tank. But the thing I didn't like about his like presentation style was there were lots of ums and ahs, and like the videos were 30 minutes long when they, and I found, and all the like when they talk about.
How do you watch any of my videos?
Yeah, no, yours are very different. But like I found like the videos were like half an hour long, and I'd watch this product review for half an hour, and I wouldn't learn the things I wanted to know. And I was like, can someone just cut out the ums and ahs, think about what you're going to say, and show me what I want to know? So product reviews. That's why the first video I did was the first one I taught him was the algae reactor video, because it was a brand new piece of kit, and I wanted to show people what it was like. And that video, if you watch that, I tell you the interesting things you need to know. Yeah. And it just used to annoy me that other videos didn't do that. And I felt that I could do better.
Yeah.
And actually at the time, so I grew to really like Aaron's Aquarium.
Yeah.
And I really liked the channel, and I was gutted when it stopped. But at the time I didn't like his videos either.
Oh.
And this is what but that's like, I don't want this is I was a bit reluctant to say this because it makes me sound like a dickhead.
Yeah.
But exactly, it does. But
just so you know, having just seen your first video, you weren't any better than the other videos.
It was a lot worse. I know. But this is, and it's not like so, and particularly I found that when I got to know people a bit better, I enjoyed their channels more, as in when I got to know them by watching more of their videos. But I just found I wasn't mad keen on a lot of the channels out there, so I just thought that there was space for someone to explain products better as much as anything. But then when I started, I was doing tank updates and nobody watched them, and it was only when after about a year I then figured out what works on YouTube, and I made a couple of videos that suddenly blew up, went massive compared to what I was before. And from that point onward, I made a video every week and just kind of picked up a bit. But I started because I just thought there's got to be better videos made. And actually nowadays, so the standard of videos is brilliant across the board.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was there 8 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
It's interesting because I kind of just fell into it. Obviously,
really?
As in my channel was obviously the original channel started in the weirdest way. I was listening on the news. There was a woman who shot a giraffe, and there was outrage, absolute outrage, because this woman,
like hunting on safari.
Yes, and it was this pretty blonde woman, and she shot this giraffe. And I thought, if this was a big, fat, ugly man, it wouldn't make the news. But because it was this woman who was obviously attractive, and I realized that. I don't know why it clicked at that point, that people would view things differently based on gender. And then I realized that there were no females in the hobby, and that was how it started. And I'm not even sure. Right. I'm not sure what I wanted to achieve. I wasn't out there trying to like make loads of money or get loads of views or anything. I just thought, let's see if this works. I just went, can you just feed the fish?
Did you think about making money at all? Not like thousands of pounds, but did you think was that a motivation at all?
What I thought after it started, I thought that, and we discussed this the other day, that what you could do, you could have if you put out 100 videos and they all got a consistent amount of views, it could pay for the cost of the hobby. And then after 100 videos, you just stop. But we now know that YouTube doesn't work like that. And as soon as you stop posting, or basically your channel just dies very quickly, and you don't earn anything from it, or you earn a minuscule amount in comparison. Less, Yes. So, but at the time, I thought that was possible, and I thought if I do this for a short period of time, get 100 videos out or whatever it was, I can pay for my hobby forever. But then you realize that YouTube's like a treadmill, so you have to keep putting content out. So it's but. And I've come to the realization that it's unlikely that you'll make a serious amount of money from YouTube unless you're one of the people with millions of followers.
Yeah.
So,
And that, so actually, because that was the other, although I started because I thought I could do better, I did have in mind you can make money off YouTube, and I never thought I'd make well, I still don't, but I never thought it would be my career or whatever.
yeah.
But I thought that was part of my motivation. I thought if I could make a bit of cash, maybe pay for the hobby. So it wasn't just like out of the goodness of my own heart, God, I want to share all my information, all knowledge. That was, I wanted to make good videos and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But part of it was I might be able to make a few quid here. Not like I'm going to retire on it.
Yeah.
But that was part of it. And I suspect that was the case for most people.
It's interesting because sometimes these conversations, we start off doing what we're doing, and then a far more interesting conversation comes up, like this one. And
well,
then people,
yeah.
I was going to say, people come in, they're like, I thought they're talking about the past.
Why are they talking about YouTube? Yeah, exactly. But when I watch other YouTubers that I watch and they talk about this sort of stuff, I love it. I love all the like honest, genuine, behind the scenes stuff. None of this fluffy, polished, regular videos when you can actually see them talking and actually being open. I really like that. So I don't mind talking about it. But But anyway.
I'm always like the devil on your shoulder, and I always encourage you to do less because I was you like 5 years ago.
But this week was like on the hamster wheel.
Yeah, I was posting consistently every week, no matter what. That was what I was doing. That's what you're doing. I see that from you. And then when you messaged me that night saying you're tired, I was like, just don't do it. It's fine. No one will care.
I wonder if you have a different impression of like if you're picturing. Because I texted you on Monday, was it, and said I can't be asked.
You were crying.
I wasn't crying. So I think I texted you on Monday or maybe Tuesday, and I said I'm struggling to be asked to write this video, and you were like, just don't do it, just don't do one.
Don't do it.
What's going to happen? And I was like, but YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I wondered, what were you thinking? What were you picturing me? Were you picturing me like, oh God, I can't do it. Is it too much? Or what?
No, look, sometimes, no. And I don't, YouTube is easy. It's not hard at all because we don't talk about that ever. So, no, well, I just thought sometimes you just didn't fancy it. Sometimes you just don't. And that's what I thought. I was just like, well, just don't do it. So.
But the thing is, like with this, so on Monday night, I was trying to write this video and I wanted it to make it about, because I did a video ages ago that reefing is easy. And the intention was the week after I was going to do reefing is difficult and just like a balance or whatever. And I never got around to doing it. And I thought I wanted to do that for ages. I was like, do you know what? I'm finally going to do it. And actually, I thought it might do quite well. It's done okay, but not as well as I thought it might. But anyway, chatting dating website.
Yeah, I saw that ages ago, but I know how annoyed you get, so I just ignored it.
I've got it. But sorry.
I was going to say, this was the other thing that happened the other day. You said to me, right, I've decided I'm going to do it. So I'm going to sit down for an hour and focus really hard on getting this done.
That's not what I said. No. You're misrepresenting the truth.
It was something like that. No, it was something like that. And then 5 minutes later, I went, I've decided that I'm going to distract you because I don't care.
So I'd wanted to make this video for ages, and for the last 6 months, I looked at my stats. For the last 6 months, I've had 2 videos do more than 20,000 views, and they were 30 and 35,000, which is not a lot. Okay, and that's for 6 months is a long time. So I wanted to make an effort to show YouTube, look, I can still make good videos. I've not lost it. Don't lose faith in me, sort of thing. And so the last couple of videos have been effort videos, and this one I sat down on Monday, and I was trying to write it, and I was like, I watched a few other videos. I don't want to just say the same thing as everyone else. I watched a few other videos, and I was like, and I started writing what I was going to say, and it was all just. I was like, oh, that's crap though. But when I get to that point, I
at least you're being consistent with your content.
Well, consistently rubbish.
Yeah.
But when I get to that point, I walk away. I just turn the computer off. I walk away.
Yeah.
And the next day I came back and sat down, and it was so much better. That's when I said, you were texting, I was like, right, I'm going to crack on with this now.
Yeah.
And it was so much better. And then the third day, I actually wrote the script for 3 days, which I don't normally do.
Yeah.
And I binned off a load and changed it, and it was so much better. And when you get to when you're struggling and you've got like writer's block, for want of a better phrase,
yeah,
it feels crap. but then when you suss it and you're like, that's funny, or that's a
Yeah.
really good point, or whatever.
You haven't
it's
had
really
any of those.
I've not.
people
I'm
you
yet to
shout
have
at.
that, but you know. But when you do get that, it's like, oh yes, and it's suddenly really rewarding. So you've just got to push through the tough evening here and there, and crack on.
Yeah. I'll consider that the next time I decide to do a video.
Exactly. Anyway, we'll get back onto topic. Just saying, there is 4,000 subscribers between a couple of YouTube. There is, yeah.
Is that between us?
What have you got? 54. I've got
Yeah.
just shy of 50. I've been catching you for a while.
Yeah, I know.
I keep an eye, because I'm such a dog. I
Yeah.
keep an eye on these sort of stats.
It's funny because you care so much and I care so little. If you
I
went,
know,
Brian,
serious.
guess what? I got 4,000 followers last night. I'll be like, and?
So you have 54.2 thousand subscribers.
Oh, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy, you know, you can buy them. I'm going to buy 10,000. When you're
Right.
one
12.
subscriber away from me, I'm going to buy 10,000.
So I think I've got 49.8.
Then they're not real subscribers. It does make your number go up, I think. I've never done it. And I think it might harm your channel doing it.
Oh, I
But
bet
just-
it does. Yeah.
But just for fun, if you're one subscriber away from me, I'm going to buy 10,000.
But I genuinely don't care about that. It's not like a thing. But I do keep a track on the top 10 in the hobby.
Yeah,
because
and
I'm
not
interested.
part of the top 10. That's why you don't care.
Oh no, I think you are. I think you're.
Am I?
I think you're 10th.
Really?
Or well, it depends what way you look at it. Because I don't count Coralfish 12G, partly because I'm never going to catch him. So there's no point thinking of him as competition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You are number 10 according to my record.
That is insane.
So I'll go through my so the top 10 that I've got. This is as at 13th of November 2021. Bulk Reef Supply, number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, Reef Builders. Number 3, Tidal Gardens. Number 4, Bulk Reef Supply, the second channel. Number 5, Inappropriate Reefer. Number 6, Malev. Number 7, Mad Hatter's Reef. Number 8, Danny's Aquarium. Number 9, Sea Friendly Reef. Number 10, Prestige Reef.
I am genuinely amazed that I'm on the top 10 list.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, I'm genuinely amazed because if someone said to me you're on top 10, I'd be like, nah, probably not.
There might be others that I've missed, to be fair. I don't think there are, but there might be others that I've missed, to be fair.
I think you should read James's thing out because, you know, it just makes me feel good.
My 2 cents. I don't care so much about regular posting as long as the videos are good. Do you know, that's a good point there. My girlfriend and I are very excited when Ryan graces us with a video. Yeah, for sure. I was looking today, to be honest, to see if you'd uploaded. But that's a really good point. Go on.
I was going to upload today, just so you know, but then I spent the entire day. As I said, the council's coming to do an inspection, so I made sure everything is spotlessly clean. They won't care. But...
Perfect time to do a video.
What, when the council comes?
Miss. Coral Farm gets shut down live on YouTube. No, but like when the farm's looking clean.
Nah, I know what my next video is going to be, and I already know what it is. It's going to be similar to the last one, but with intermediate corals that make money. So, Cephastrias are a great one for making money because they grow quickly. The Leptocerus, Lithophyllums, those sorts of things. So I already know what I'm going to say, and I could use the same format as the previous one. I just haven't got around to doing it.
Cut that clip of this video, and I'll post it, and it'll be like, "This is Ryan's top 5. Don't bother watching."
Yeah, that'd be your next video, won't it?
But this is so the point that James makes about you look forward to a video and you don't want a regular upload. So that is that's actually true. People always say it's important to be consistent on YouTube, and actually it is to a point. But it's not the be all and end all. And the perfect example of this is Coral Euphoria.
Yes.
So I look forward to him uploading a video. And when I want to see it, I'm like, click on it instantly. And he gets a shit ton of views, considering he uploads once just whenever he can be, whenever he's got time, basically. And he gets more views than I do for most of my videos.
Yeah.
And it's because he doesn't just churn out videos every week.
Yeah.
He does good quality videos. So when he uploads a video, you know it's going to be good.
He's also like a serious reefer, whereas you're
this is very true.
Like
amateur, pleb. But no, so his videos are really good. And there are a couple of channels that I watch outside of the hobby that upload very occasionally, and it's like I've got notifications turned on for them. It's an instant click when they do, and they do really well. So actually, you don't need Mr. Beast, biggest YouTuber in the world. I think uploads once a month, 5 or 6 times a year, maybe.
Really?
So, yeah. But they're absolute bangers, and they get 100 million views each. So, and he spends like $2 million on the video. But anyway, so you don't need to upload every week. But I'm not convinced if I uploaded it once a month, the videos would be 4 times better.
Yeah. See.
And I think there's a place for people who do upload every week, and anyway,
people but it's like consistency, and YouTube likes it as well. So what I was thinking just a minute ago is that it took 1 hour and 10 minutes before we got through the original content, and then I started making fun of you, and then everyone in the comments is like, no, everyone who's watching is like, yeah, this is what we come here for. We come here to try and take the piss out of Alex.
Well, speaking of which, Les wants to see you sniffing Paleothera and passing out. So
yes. Well,
would you do a live fragging, or you've done a few videos about bandsawing stuff?
Yes, it's really difficult because obviously I film everything on my phone. So to frag with one hand and hold your phone with the other hand is not easy.
I almost bought you a tripod once.
Ah,
I meant to buy one and send you one because there's one time where you were like, oh, hang on, I've just got the bands. It was like Acans or something. And I was like, just get a tripod. But they're a pain in the ass. And
even then, I think I've got a tripod, but this bandsaw is only on a very small bit of work surface, so it's not easy to. I'm
putting words into Les's mouth.
But
the problem with the bandsaw, so there's a couple of times I've searched how to frag X coral or whatever, and it'll be someone with a bandsaw, and I'm like, yeah, if I had a bandsaw, I wouldn't be asking how to frag it. It's a piece of cake. And what you really want is how to frag corals without a bandsaw, which is how everybody else would do it.
Yeah, that is true actually, if you think about it, because not everyone has a bandsaw. So
no.
Yeah. My next video will be like how to frag without a bandsaw, and you'll be like,
do it. No, do it. There was my favourite coral farm in the UK, the Coral Centre.
Oh yeah, mine too.
My favourite. He's my favourite coral farm owner as well. Really nice guy.
Oh yeah, mine too. Look, no one's ever described me as a nice guy before, so I don't blame you for that. So
I find that hard to believe.
What I find interesting is some corals are fragged better not on the saw.
Yeah.
Dremel. Oh.
I use the Dremel.
Be hard work.
This is the thing. This is the Tim's pointing out the main issue. You feel like you're going to lose a finger.
Yes.
I definitely am. And actually, I'll come back onto that in a sec. Remember, push button reef. I love the Prestige Reef Dork show. It's like having a chat with mates down the pub. Keep them coming. I love that. Well, thank you for the super chat first off. Paul, I believe your name is. Thank you for the super chat and thank you for the comment. That's what I want this to be. And that's how I feel it is, just like a couple of guys having a chat. And I feel like, and I watch these back. I've said before, I watch these back and I can enjoy watching them because I'm only a third of it. The other 2/3 are you in the chat. So it's fun. And I don't keep up with the chat, but I watch it the day after. And there's some of the comments are hilarious. They're brilliant. But
when you said that's what I want this chat to be, in my mind, I went, what, people sending you money?
Well, obviously that's ideal. But having a chat with your mates down the pub, I just like it to be that conversation. What I was going to say is, with the Dremel, and apart from the fact that you might lose your finger, so I've got a Dremel diamond disc, and it's 25 quid attachment, so it's expensive, but it's brilliant. It's really thin. Most of the Dremel blades are quite thick, and there's a Monty that I've got that you really want.
Oh yeah, the one you're like, I can't frag that.
Because I'm too much of a wimp. Yeah, and I posted a photo of it on Instagram because this has been hiding in the shade until recently, and I finally thought I should find somewhere for it. So that's a terrible photo, really grainy, but that's it. It's got really bright blue polyps.
Yeah.
And I fragged that today with the Dremel, and it's so good. It's like a knife.
For me,
I've made 6 frags.
Oh, thank you.
Potentially.
How much? Are they really expensive by any chance?
I've not worked out yet. I won't sell them expensive, but I bet. Nice. I don't know.
I will take all 6 if they're not expensive.
when they're settled, because they need to spread out and all that sort of stuff. I'll give you a shout. I've just fragged. Well, just a couple of months ago, I fragged a beach bum or crazy tea.
Oh yeah,
I've got 11 of those.
Have you got any of that really really good one? Tropic Thunder.
I've got. Do you know what? I've got a lot of that stuff actually. It's funny you mention it.
How convenient. Me too.
But anyway, so I fragged that with a Dremel today, and it was wicked. It's so good.
Yeah.
But the problem with it is, it's got like, because I'm holding the frag in one hand, which is a mistake. I should get a clamp or something, and the Dremel in the other. And I can imagine, it's never happened, but it's the sort of thing that I can imagine you push on the Dremel and then slip, and then bang, off goes your finger. And when I first started looking into it, I was looking for chainmail gloves because I was paranoid about it.
Yeah.
But I think the answer is to get a clamp to hold something to hold the frag plug. Yeah. And then my other hand's away from it. But
yeah, what I find interesting, I don't know what it is. The grafted Montipora in the farm, if you use the saw, you lose like probably 30% of the frags. If you use just bone cutters where it just cracks randomly, you don't lose any. I don't know why.
That's really funny. I always assumed that it would the exact other way around with all corals.
No. Look, don't get me wrong. Some corals is bloody brilliant. Like all the euphyllias. If you try and use bone cutters, you can crack them and they split all the way up to the top, and that's like really really bad. But with the saw, you don't frag anything. You don't cut. You don't damage anything.
Junior Vice. I'm going to look that is the answer. I think that's a really good idea. Actually, I'll look that up. What I was going to say is, so you've just reminded me of with the bandsaw. So that Jamie Craig's video I mentioned earlier, he still hasn't messaged me back, by the way. you two are best mates, and there's me on the side going,
we're like, Jamie, we're not best mates. As I say, we've sent like probably 5 messages to each other.
Well, I've sent him 2, so I'm halfway there.
True.
But anyway, this video, the BRS, the most recent BRS video, one of the things that he showed was there's some guy in, I think he's a coral farm in Australia or something, and he found that scullies have a habit of dying sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
Often because people think, well, temperature's too high. He said this coral farmer guy said, look, every time I've had this, I've got a bandsaw out and I've cut the skeleton in half.
Yeah.
And there's a muscle of some kind, a boring muscle that bores into the shell of the skeleton.
Yeah.
And it irritates the coral deliberately so it can eat its mucus, and that's what kills it. And he said every time he checks, that's what's caused it. And Jamie Craig's had one that was dying. He cut the skeleton open. Guess what was there? A muscle, boring muscle.
It's interesting.
And that made me. I almost made a video saying you need to know about this. Sorry.
I've seen them on Trachophilias as well, like where something's bored right into them. But I don't know what it was. So you get ghoul crabs, I think, that do the same thing. I was going to
say, yeah. I don't think they're as bad.
Yeah.
Well, I've never had one, to be fair. But they're a muscle of some kind. And I saw that and I was like, that is amazing. And I've got a Scully that's doing okay, but every now and then it sulks a bit. And I did think, maybe I should Dremel the bottom off. But
yeah.
Have you got a Griffin XL bandsaw?
Yes. Aquasaw. Yeah, that is the one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one
I always call them Gryphon, but you might be right.
Oh, yeah. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the one you have. Reef Dork, I have a forge. Maybe there is some way to make a Lord of the Rings style frag. Oh, right. I see. Yeah. Okay. And we've got a request for Tropic Thunder.
Well, who do you want it from?
I don't know if I've got a big bit. But I'm going to be selling my island, one of my islands thing that's covered in Monty.
Oh, yeah.
I will give you first refusal. You may not want it.
Which one? What's on it?
It's the one on the right. It's got this enormous, like 10-foot long LA Lakers Monty. That's got to be worth £2,000.
Is that the green and
blue and yellow polyps, or like purple and yellow?
Yeah.
Blue
that doesn't do well in my tank for some reason. I don't know why. I've got some already. It doesn't do well. No.
And then it's got an enormous Tropic Thunder, of course.
Why are you selling? Why do you want to sell another one of your islands?
Because
You're
I'm
a
bored
nightmare with your tank.
I am a nightmare, but I'm bored of it, and I want better corals there. And I find there's only 2 corals on there that I actually like, and the rest I'm like, And this bloody LA Lakers Monty has just gone. It looks cool, but I just don't like that it's one massive coral. And I want more acros, basically, space for acros.
Yeah. We're so different. I'm like, put it in there, let it all grow out so much that it grows into everything else. And then when it's a big mess, I'm like, yep, I'm done.
I kind of like that look, but generally, like, I don't like staghorn acros because they take up a load of space. I like the smaller stuff. But there was, if I walk past my house, there's like a little a gravel path down the side of my house by the living room. Yeah. My living room is quite small, so I don't ever get to see the tank properly. But when I'm walking past the house and I see it from like 10 feet away, it looks so cool. And that's when you notice some of the bigger corals. But I never stand more than 6 feet away from the tank.
I was going to say, you got to go outside to appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't. I just prefer. I'm not a massive fan of like the big colonies as a general rule. If I had a bigger tank, I would be.
It's interesting. Why do you not think it's like? I think that gets to a stage where there's a bit where you've got all little small colonies, but they're not quite touching each other yet, and then it's all good. And then they start touching each other. And there's a big war,
and then it goes pear shaped. Yeah. So actually, I've got one. So when that's the perfect stage, and I've got a strawberry shortcake colony that I've had for probably 5 years now, certainly 4.5.
Yeah.
I had it in my last tank briefly as a frag, and that is big. That is kind of that big, and it looks amazing. I love it, and I need to trim it back, but it looks wicked, and those corals are awesome. So maybe it's maybe it's that I do like big corals. It's just I don't like big, boring corals. I like like I used to have a barley green slimer. I just got bored of it. It's really bright.
You had this nice blue acro, didn't you?
I did, yeah. You ruined it and turned it green. Oh, actually, do you know what though? Have you still got that?
I have pieces of it, yeah.
Because I go on your website occasionally. I probably don't tell you, but I go on probably every week or two.
Oh yeah, you never buy anything.
Well, no, this is why, because I go looking for the SPS, and it's like you normally stop at Monty's. You don't have acros and stuff, because I go on thinking, I wonder if there's any cheeky, nice stuff on there.
No, so basically, what usually happens is when I get like a mystery box from Indonesia or something, there's like a list of people that go, look, this is what I want, and they like swarm and take all the when you get new wild corals, they're all like nicely colored, and then you put in your tank and they turn brown. Well, people come and buy them on day one before they turn brown. So that's why you never see them.
But I'm not interested in wild corals at all. Just not my cup of tea. But I wonder if I go on sometimes looking for frags, and at the moment, so this is what you've got. Actually, that's quite nice, purple stylo, and these are lovely. Okay, so there's that one in particular is a nice coral. That's nice as well. That's nice.
Oh, so you're just a whole list of all these nice corals that you're not buying, but you're looking at every week.
I've bought this one. 20 quid. Oh no, 50 quid. I was going to say.
I was going to say you didn't. I'd be surprised if it was 20 quid.
Yeah, that's nice as well. But it's still. But I'm at the stage now where I want acros. You're not really an acro fan, though, are you?
I go through stages. Sometimes I don't know. Really, no is the honest answer. Not really. No. I think there's a lot of the acros that come in now when they're imported. They're like the same thing that I've seen over and over again, and I don't get excited by them. Whereas some of the other corals that come in, like some of the lobophilias, that nice black and red one. I had a green one with the pink edges come in, or a red one with yellow eyes. They're things I haven't seen before. Whereas the acros, it's almost like they have a surplus of specific types in Indonesia.
Right.
Because what you can do, you can change any of the other corals to be more acros, because they know that they've always got loads of them, so they can always fulfill the order. And it's almost like they're trying to get you to take them.
Right, okay.
And they're always just the same things. But then recently there was a box where they changed it and you could literally pick what you wanted. Because it's just a mystery box of acros. You don't know what you're going to get. This week they changed it and there was such nice things on it. And then the order was cancelled. So I was really annoyed because it was meant to come in tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Because I picked all these acros. I was thinking, yep, Reef Dork will want this one. Reef Dork will want this one.
But if it's wild caught, Reef Dork won't want it.
Oh no, these are not wild caught ones. These are like non-wild caught ones that they have been aquacultured in my tank for a day.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I know you don't like wild caught ones. Look, don't get me wrong. Depending on what species they are, they can be fine.
But that's it, and they're massively popular, and it seems to be, and it's not just me who doesn't like them, but I'm in the minority, I think.
Yeah,
I just don't like them. But so Signature Frags is a website that suits me. It's just I want to go and see them because I just don't like buying online, and he's miles away. So
yeah, I find the Millipora always come in fine.
You had was it from London Aquatic Design? You had a really nice sunset millie.
Yes,
green and yellow. Yeah,
I've had all sorts of different millies. Like there was one on that, especially on that box. There was one that was like raspberry pink with green polyps. It looked amazing. And then, as I said, and I picked it, and it didn't. And then, as I said, the whole order was cancelled. But when you see what colours millies can come in, that's not just the standard like yellow or green ones. They're insane. Some of them. They are just as not, the tenuous is where they're known for being all those rainbow colors.
Yeah.
The harder to get rarer colored sort of millies are so nice. I would have those over a tenuous any day.
Interesting. Can you aquaculture? Can you grow them? Can you buy them wild, grow them in your farm for 2 years, and then sell me a frag for 10 quid?
There's corals that are in there that I will have had for over 2 years. From there are acros from the. I think there's acros in there which I've had probably for like 8 years because they're from my really? 1,000 litre tank. Yeah,
I need to pay you another visit. It's been a while.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come down. So, we'll do a live stream where we're sitting next to each other. Do you want the butt or do you want the butt or the boobs? Which one do you want to sit underneath?
I'm an ass man, so I'll go left.
Yeah.
Oh, will you go away, bot? Oh man, block you.
You should just leave it. Let's just like.
Do you reckon if I left it, the bot would give me a super chat?
Yeah. Thank you for leaving it. Everyone else deletes it.
But if you come back, I will let you stay if you give me a super chat. It's got £1,000.
Do you think it's a real person?
No, it's a bot.
I'm
guessing. Because there's this thing at the moment. I'm going to have to do a video at some point, but there's this thing at the moment. My channel's not big enough. It's for bigger channels. But there's like some kind of bot that will reply to comments. Because if I reply to a comment that someone else has left on your video, you won't see it in your app, will you? YouTube won't tell you about it.
No, yeah.
So this bot will reply to people's comments, so the creator doesn't see it, and it will have a picture like my picture. They'll have copy and pasted it, and it'll be Reef Dork free gifts or something, and it will say, "I am Reef Dork. Contact me on Telegram." I don't have a Telegram. Don't even know what it is. Contact me on Telegram, and you've won a free prize. And then it will say, "Give me 50 quid, and I'll post you the free prize." And people.
So you're telling me the 50 quid I sent you didn't come to you?
Exactly. Yeah. But that's the thing. So, and I've seen that on other channels that are around the 100,000 mark, and that's what these things. That's how they. Or with that one, maybe you click on it and it, I don't know, infects your computer or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I've clicked on it every time it comes up. I click on it, so
just in case.
We've only got 2 minutes left of the show, so I'm gonna need something to do afterwards.
Indeed. We've gone downhill. My fault. Do you think millies are a slower grower? Warm sticks.
Are they slower than monkeys? Yes. Are they slower than acros? No. Wait, did I get that right around?
Well, they are acros.
As in, like, non-millipore
acros.
Look, yes, they're known as millies usually, rather than. Yes, I know what you're saying. God, look at you acro snob.
I know, yeah. The other thing from that Jamie Craig's video, he pronounces aquapora acropora.
I know. It's interesting because certain people do call it acropora and
montipora.
I've not heard that one before.
Yeah. And that must be the correct way of pronouncing it.
Wrong.
I know, yeah. It does. That sounds Greek to me, but that must be the correct way of pronouncing it. but there's
Yeah.
no way I'm going to do it.
No, because people were like,
Taken to
when did
aggro.
you become a knob?
This is very true. Yeah. Well, about 35 years ago, but
Yeah, true.
All right. So we're close to the 2-hour mark. Is there anything else you want to talk about back in the day or otherwise? I don't feel like we
No.
really paid much.
No, well, look, we did an hour and 10 minutes of this. No, the only reason I was shaking my head there was because someone just sent me a message on Instagram asking me a question, and I was like, they must be watching this. Why haven't they posted it in the comments?
Do you know what? That's one question I meant to ask, and I did see there's loads of questions, the things in the chat that I keep seeing a comment in the chat, and I'm like, I'll go back to that, and then I forget. But there was one earlier. Someone was asking about, this was right from the start. He was asking about zoas and saying, basically, I've got high nitrate. Here are my parameters. Why do corals die in my tank? And really, you can't. I don't think you can properly answer that on a YouTube live stream. But you can do if you show me a photo of your tank, tell me more, and have a two-way conversation. Do your consultations? Do you do them just so look? Is it like I'm just starting out? What equipment do I need? Or is it people as well who say, mate, I've got problems with my tank. How do I fix it? Do you do that?
People come to me for anything, all sorts of things. Actually, ML Rubber is actually having a consultation on Tuesday with me. But people come all sorts of things. There was one guy, and I love doing them. And the reason I love doing them is because sometimes people are like literally have had enough. They're at the very end, and I'm like the last resort. Do you want to mention the super chat? I can see you.
Yes.
Okay, there
you go. ML Rubber, thank you very much. Thanks both. He says thanks for both for all you're doing for the hobby.
There was a man who he's probably about an hour from me, and he said, "Look, I have high nitrates. I cannot deal with them. I've had enough. I'm going to close the tanks down. The nitrates are like 100. Nothing is working for them." And I went, "Let me look at your skimmer." And I went, "Your skimmer's not dialed in correctly." And it was like 30 seconds. And you know, it was so nice. A month
Did you
later,
refund him like £58?
We went through loads and loads of stuff. It wasn't just that. But a month later, he, as in a couple of days ago, he messaged me and he went, "It's the tank's coming back to life. Things are back under control." And it's like, I helped someone with that. Someone this morning was a new person who was dealing with dinoflagellates for the first time, and he just didn't know what to do. I had a very experienced person who actually made me nervous, because imagine you coming to me saying, "Well, how could you help me?" And the reality was he wanted someone to chat to. He wanted someone to bounce ideas off. He wanted to go, "Look, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm going to use this bacteria and this, and my tank it needs a new restart. So how do we go down that path?" But before every single consultation, I send some of them people a message saying, "What do you want to get out of this call?" Because there's no point in just sitting there going, "What do you want to talk about?" And then I can prepare in advance. It's not just sitting down. I like to know what they want. I'm glad.
Slightly distracted. First off, James, thank you very much for the super chat. You both make my Sunday night cheers.
See. Alex is here for the money. I'm here for the nice comments.
Exactly. So you get people. Actually, there's another comment I wanted to post. Les just wants to call you for a chat because he's lonely. Les, if you want to call me for a chat, you want to pay money, yeah. But that's I want to feel wanted. I think Les wants a snuggle, basically.
Trust me, Les, I can make you feel wanted for £60. Okay. I'll do it.
But yeah, so that I've said a couple of times before, that consultation thing, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's such a good idea, and it makes such a difference. And even because it will be something simple, and that people ask us questions all the time. I know you and I talk about sometimes we get a question on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and like that guy earlier, he said, "My zoas are dying. I've got high nitrates. What's the problem?"
Yeah,
like, I mean.
You need to know all the parameters, what the lighting is.
He posted his parameters. Even then, he said it all looked. I had a quick glance. I think his nitrates were like 20 or something, and his phosphate was 0.1.
Yeah,
that doesn't tell that on the face of it. You might think your phosphates are a bit high, but realistically, doesn't mean anything. And that's not going to be. So I almost mentioned this in my video on Friday. My two tanks, my water box and my main tank, have almost identical parameters. One of them is absolutely thriving and looks really good.
Yeah.
The other one looks like a sack of shit at the moment. So my Zoas and my LPS are fine, but my SPS, they're just looking crap.
Yeah.
Some of them are completely melting, and it's not the parameters. It's not that. So it's, you can't just, if someone says these are my parameters, even if they list everything, and this guy said he'd had an ICP test, that's a part of the story. So you can't do it justice. I think we should have one of these streams where we just do a Q&A, because they are useful, but you can't do
no, because then everyone will realize that I don't know anything, and when they book, they'll be like, why are people booking a consultation with this guy?
Or maybe it'll be free advertising, because everyone will be like, wow, he knows all this stuff. Hold back.
So what you're saying is you're going to pay me £60 to be your consultant for all of your chat.
I don't recall saying that, no. But what I think, because what you should do is, and if we have the Q&A, give all your answers, and just like get to the last point when you're saying, and do you know what? And the way to fix all of that is, I'll tell you when you book a consultation.
Yes, true.
But no, we should do that. That'd be quite good fun. There are a couple of other people as well that I did want to catch up with in the chat, and I think I might have missed a couple of them.
The thing that going back just very quickly to the, while you're looking to the Zoas, I couldn't work out what was wrong with my Zoas for ages until I found out that Asterian starfish was sitting on them. So Asterias will eat. They're not. This was a long time ago. They're not your ones, but Asterias will eat some types of Zoas.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can literally, like, if you pick them, you can pull the starfish off, and you're like, that's what it's been all this time.
Do you know? So that for that guy, that I've made 2 videos you should go and watch. There's one that was a Zoa care guide.
Yeah.
When I make care guides for corals or fish, it makes me nervous because I'm not that experienced in it. It's not like I've been in for 30 years and I've seen billions of corals. I don't make those videos if I don't know what I'm talking about. But Tidal Gardens, about a month after I did my Zoa care guide video, they did a Zoa care guide video, and I was like, oh shit, he's going to be saying all these things that I haven't thought of. And I watched it, and there were a couple of extra things he said, but basically he said the exact same thing as I did, and that made me feel so good. But first off, watch that video. And the other video I made a while ago is called, I think it's called This Is Why Your Corals Are Dying. And it's basically a list of about 15 things. There's it doesn't go into depth on it, but I bet of those 15 things, write them down, work out what the problem is. It will be one of those.
Yeah.
It's things like,
it's like light, flow, you.
it's not, it's so light. It's almost never light. People always think maybe I need 5% less white or whatever, or 2% more green. It's not that.
Yeah.
But it might be too much light. It might be a fish. Look at the fish you've got. See what it's basically. The point of that video was, here's 15 things. Go and look through these and look into it. So have you got any fish that might be pecking on it? Have a real close up look with a magnifying glass. Is there anything on it that shouldn't be on there?
Yeah.
Tell me about where'd you get your water from? Is it from, the toilet, for example?
Has it got any cigarettes in it?
Exactly. And all those things. So there's a list of things you can go through, but you've got to, the bad side of that video is you've got to work it out yourself.
Yeah.
And might be a rusty MP40. This guy said he had no heavy metals on his ICP test.
Yeah.
But anyway, there were a couple other questions I was going to run through, but actually, there's the risk of being a 3-hour live stream. So
I've had a long day.
Yeah. Well, you have, haven't you? Yeah. Okay. All right. In which case, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And Ryan, as always, thank you for coming along.
Thank you for having me. So
you are welcome. It's a pleasure every single time. And I will catch you all next week.
See you later.
Bye, guys.